Okay, today is the lab number 9. It's a simulation of 6 processor. There are two types of computer architecture. One is the 6, other is the RISC. 6 is the complex instruction set computer, and RISC is the reduced instruction set computer. In today's lab, our main focus, we are going to see how we are going to measure the performance of your computer system. We are going to simulate the 6 model in lab 9 and the RISC model in lab 10, and through simulation we will measure the performance of the system. If you want to measure the performance of the computer system, you must understand the design of the system properly. Different design parameters you need to consider, and as you vary those design parameters, how it affects the system performance. That's the goal of this lab today. That means we'll change different design parameters of our computer system, and as we change the design parameter, or as we change a particular design parameter and keep other parameters fixed, or as we change some parameter, how it affects the ultimate performance of your system, that we are going to measure through our simulation. There are several design parameters or key design parameters we'll consider in our experiment. One of the design parameter is the cache hit rate. It is very important, that's cache hit rate, because it's one of the key parameters for your CPU performance. So we'll change the hit rate of your CPU and we'll measure the performance, and we'll find out how the performance gets affected, okay, as you change the cache hit rate. And when you change the cache hit rate, in practically what it implies, as you increase the hit rate, it means that you are increasing your cache system or cache size of your CPU. If you decrease the hit rate, that means you are decreasing the cache size of your CPU. If you look at the present trend of the CPU manufacturer, you will find that they are trying their best to give you larger cache size, because a larger cache size gives you higher hit rate. Through our simulation, we'll prove this fact. Okay, so we'll prove this fact that as we increase the cache size, it really increases the CPU performance. There are several other parameters we are going to consider. One is the branch prediction accuracy. Okay, how accurately you can predict the next instruction. That's one of the key design parameters. In modern day CPU, inside the CPU there is a future teller. Okay, if you show your hand to a future teller, the future teller will predict what is in your future by looking at your hand sign. Similarly, inside the modern CPU, nowadays there is future teller, or we call more precisely branch predictor. This branch predictor or future teller predict what will be the next instruction to be executed, or next number of instruction to be executed. Okay, let me show you one design, I think, branch predictor. Okay, if I go to the net, let me give a search in Google. Branch prediction unit, I think. Okay, look at over here. In computer architecture, a branch predictor is a digital circuit that tries to guess which way a branch will go before this is known definitively. The purpose of branch predictor is to improve the flow in the instruction pipeline. Okay, look at over here. There is a small diagram over here of branch predictor. Branch prediction unit architecture. I think this looks like okay. If you look at the diagram, and this particular architecture is known as the final feature of the Hammer's branch prediction unit is a bit of logic called branch target address calculator. Okay, so this is a very basic design of branch prediction unit, and it can predict the future. Okay, what instruction will be executed on the next. So inside the modern CPU, there is a branch predictor, and it predicts the future. Now, what will happen if the prediction goes wrong? Certainly, suppose you have shown your hand to someone who has predicted that you will get, let's say, 10 million taka in the lottery, or $100 million in lottery. You know, in USA there is a Powerball. Sometimes the amount goes very high, $100 million, $200 million. Okay, suppose the future teller has told that you will get $200,000, okay, or $200 million in the lottery. Okay, so enough money for you. So no need to come to the university, and no need to do any job, because you are getting that first prize in Powerball, $200 million. You are waiting and waiting. Okay, after 5 years, no result. After 10 years, no result. So if the prediction goes false or wrong, certainly there is a penalty. Similar way, inside the CPU, if the prediction is wrong, certainly there will be penalty. Now inside the CPU, the penalty is measured in terms of clock cycle wasted. Okay, so when we change the design parameter, we will change this branch prediction accuracy. As you increase the branch prediction accuracy, it means that you are improving the design of this particular unit inside the CPU, branch prediction. That means your prediction is more accurate. Now how much it is? 80%, 90%, 93, 94, 95. As you increase the accuracy, certainly it will, you are increasing or you are improving the design of this particular unit. You are making the outcome of this particular prediction unit more accurate. So you are redesigning the entire system to have more accuracy. Okay, so and as you reduce the percentage of this accuracy, that means your design is going to be degraded. Okay, so as you increase the accuracy, it is improving, and as you lower the accuracy, it is degraded. And also we will change the mispredicted branch penalty. That means if there is a misprediction, how much clock cycle will be wasted. Now, in case of penalty, certainly less is good. More penalty is not desirable. So when we increase the number of clock cycle for penalty, that means it's not good for us. And that means that when we reduce the number of clock cycle for the mispredicted branch penalty, that means we are improving the system design. So these two are important design parameters: branch prediction accuracy and mispredicted branch penalty. So we have discussed two parameters. One is the cache hit rate and penalty when there will be a cache miss. That means when you are looking for an item in the cache memory, if you don't find it, it is a miss. So how much clock cycle will be wasted? So again, it is a design parameter. So 4 parameters we have seen. One is the branch prediction accuracy, mispredicted branch penalty, cache hit rate, cache miss penalty. Apart from these 4 parameters, several other parameters we are going to change in our design, and we are going to measure the performance. So let me open the simulator and let's find out what are the other parameters. The name of the simulator is vSim. Let me run it. Superscalar CPU simulator. Okay. The simulator described in this paper is able to model 5 recent superscalar microprocessors: Compaq Alpha 21264, Hewlett Packard PA8500, IBM Power 3, Intel Pentium Pro 2 and 3, and MIPS R10000. While providing instruction shelving, dynamic register renaming, out of order issue, and instruction recording. vSim simulates branch prediction and operation of cache using a unique parameter-driven black box approach called impact modeling. vSim provides 2 models of operation: in education mode and internal operation of recent superscalar are visualized by running user-defined assembly program. Okay, so before going to the simulator, let me discuss one of the very important feature of modern day CPU. Let me open a PowerPoint slide, then you will come back again over here. We will explain this feature through Intel Pentium processor. This feature applies to all the modern CPU. Introduction to Pentium processor architecture, and we are going to see a very basic block diagram of this processor. This block diagram applies almost to all the modern CPU, the simplest form. Okay, look at over here. This is the bus interface unit. Below the bus interface unit, the components you see, these are the part of your CPU, and The first thing comes is the cache memory, L1 cache, that is inside the CPU. L1 cache in the Pentium processor is divided into two parts, L1 instruction cache, L1 data cache. This is a fetch decode unit. Inside the fetch decode unit, there is a future teller or branch predictor. This branch predictor or future teller predict future instruction that you need to fetch from the cache memory. So through the prediction, you fetch a bunch of this instruction from the cache memory. After fetching the instruction, you decode the instruction. In the modern CPU, there are multiple decoders. They can work simultaneously, okay, and decode multiple instructions at the same time. So after fetching a bunch of instructions, they are decoded through multiple decoder, and they decode instruction to microops or micro operation. These micro operations then undergo a particular process called register renaming. This is a very important feature of modern CPU, register renaming. Through register renaming, you make instruction independent of each other, so that you can take advantage of multiprocessing system or multiprocessor system of the modern CPU architecture or multi-core system. Okay. Let me explain this instruction renaming feature in greater details over here. Look at over here. Consider these two set of instruction. First set of instruction, move EAX, 17, add memory 1, EAX. That means this 17 will be moved to the EAX register. Then this memory 1 and EAX, that means 17 will be added, and the result will be stored in memory 1. Second set of instruction, again it uses the same register EAX, and a similar operation get performed with different value. Now, these two set of instruction, if you look carefully, they are using a resource EAX register that is common to both set of instruction. Same resource. So if the resource is same, your computer need to execute them one after other. Simultaneously, you cannot access same resource by two different instructions. In nowadays computer architecture, it is not possible to access same memory location simultaneously or same register simultaneously. It is sometimes known as structural hazard in pipeline. That means when two instructions try to access the same resource simultaneously, the problem arises. It is not permitted in the computer architecture, and it makes a problem. This is called structural hazard. So it prohibits the instruction to be executed simultaneously. Now, how we can overcome this situation? Let me rename the register that is common to both instructions with a different name. In the modern CPU, inside the modern CPU nowadays, they have a large number of internal registers. Number of internal registers will vary from CPU to CPU, but it is common to almost all the modern CPU. They have large number of internal registers. These registers are not programmer accessible. That means when you write a program for your computer, you cannot use the name of the internal registers in your program. You use the name of general purpose register like EAX, EBX, like that. Okay, this is the general purpose register. These internal registers are for used by the CPU itself internally. So as a programmer, you cannot use the internal registers in your program. So what happens? To make the instruction independent of each other, what CPU does, CPU rename the register with the internal register name. Look at over here. We have changed the register name AX in the first set of instruction by the name R0. On the second set of instruction, we have renamed the register AX by the name R1. As we rename the register name, we get two set of instruction, nothing common. Now, first set of instruction is using a resource called R0. Second set of instruction is using a resource called R1. So what is the advantage? Since they are using different resource, they are independent of each other and they can be executed simultaneously. So that's the feature. Actually, it was a feature of RISC processor, and Intel has copied this feature to improve its performance. Register renaming that make instruction independent of each other so that they can be executed simultaneously by multi-core system or multi-processor system or by parallel processing. Okay. So after making instructions independent of each other, they are placed in the instruction pool. In the instruction pool, all the micro-operating instructions, they are independent of each other. So what happens? They can be dispatched and executed by multiple execution units simultaneously. Inside the modern CPU, there are multiple execution units, more than one execution unit, and multiple instruction can be executed simultaneously because they are independent of each other at this stage by the process register renaming. Okay. Finally, this instruction pool store the final outcome of the instruction that has been done or middle level outcome of the instruction that is waiting to be completed. So different state the instruction can be that is maintained by this instruction pool. Finally, when the instruction get executed, the operation is done, they get returned by the retirement unit. So what happens initially in the fetch and decode, initially in this particular initial stage, things happen in order. That means the way you write the program. Sequential, okay. Now in the middle, they are all the instructions are independent of each other and they get executed in any order. It is called out of order execution. So initially it is called in order front end. In the middle it is called out of order execution. Finally they get either in order, that was in order retirement. Okay. So let me explain in details in terms of Pentium processor. These are the steps for in order front end in the Pentium processor. Predict the next instruction pointer. Fetch a stream of Intel architecture instruction. Decode instruction into micro-ops. Rename external Intel architecture registers to remove dependencies. Allocate execution unit and store status of each micro-op in the reorder buffer in its original program order. So what is reorder buffer? The reorder buffer contains 40 internal general purpose registers and store information about micro-ops that were allocated to a specific execution unit but are waiting to be executed, and micro-ops that were executed but cannot yet return. Micro-ops execution results that are in the reorder buffer are not yet permanent. The dispatch execution unit can execute instruction from reorder buffer in any order. So initially things happen in order, and in the middle it is out of order execution. Dispatch and execute micro from the reorder buffer in any order. Store their result temporarily in the reorder buffer. So this is a basic diagram of the out of order execution unit for the Pentium processor. This is the reorder buffer, and look at over here. It has 5 port in this case: port 0, port 1, port 2, port 3, port 4. At each port there are multiple execution unit connected. Okay. So in each cycle, 5 internal ports can dispatch up to 5 microops out of order to one of the multiple execution units shown. While multiple execution units are attached to one port, only one unit at a time can use the port. Finally, it is in-order retirement. In this step, write results back to the Intel architecture registers specified in the original order in your program. Store data permanently if necessary. Remove microops from the reorder buffer. So if we summarize, this is very common to almost all the modern day CPU. Initially, things happen in order. It is called in-order front end. In the middle, when the instructions get independent of each other, it is called out of order execution. In any order, an instruction can be executed. Finally, at the end, it is in order retrieval, so that your original program order is maintained. So if you understand this basic operation of CPU, then it will be easier for you to handle more complex modern architecture, because they are based on this basic principle: in order front end, out of order execution, and in order retirement. So let's go back to the simulator. If you look at the simulator, as you see, there are 5 different microprocessors that can be simulated. In lab number 9, we will simulate Intel Pentium Pro 2 and 3, that is this particular one. And in lab 10, we will simulate Digital Alpha 216. This Intel Pentium Pro 2 and 3, they are the 6 processor complex instruction set computer, and Digital Alpha 21264 is a RISC processor, reduced instruction set computer. So for lab 9, we will click Intel Pentium Pro. As you click, it shall display some information about your simulation. The Pentium Pro is a 6 processor built around a superscalar RISC core. All performance indicators available in the simulator pertain to the RISC core, and thus they do not indicate actual x86 instruction execution performance. The applicable conversion factor to calculate 6 performance from RISC indicator is approximately 0.5 to 0.8. So keep in mind, just if you multiply the performance that is you are getting from the simulator by the value 0.5 or in between 0.5 and 0.8, you will get the actual figure. So this is a very brief information about the Intel Pentium Pro processor. Okay, basic parameter for here has been shown. Dispatch rate is 3, issue rate 4, return rate 3. Okay, and you see on the left side and the right side. Okay, on the right side, if you look at over here, branch prediction accuracy, you can increase or decrease this accuracy through your up and down arrow. This is the mispredicted branch penalty that you can increase or decrease. And delay on correctly predicted branches, that is depend on the design, how much delay in between correctly predicted branches. You can also change it. Okay, we just keep it 0. Then this is the cache parameter, data cache, aggregate hit rate, you can increase or decrease. The cache miss penalty, this clock cycle, you can increase or decrease. This is the default dispatch rate, you can change the default dispatch rate, default issue rate, and default return rate. From the main window of the simulation also you can change the, if you look at over here, reorder buffer size, you can increase or decrease, and the center reservation restriction also you can increase or decrease this particular parameter. On the second tab of the simulator setting is the simulator option. You can increase or decrease the split, you can change the CPU clock rate. Then the important is the programming, how you program your system. to measure the performance. This is a very important feature or important characteristic. That means you must choose your program properly to make the outcome of your simulation more accurate. Because you are going to measure the CPU performance or you are benchmarking the CPU. To benchmark the CPU, certainly it should be as close to the real situation or real world situation. And by proper programming, you can make your simulation as close as to the real world. How you can do it? Through the instruction mix. Okay, if you look at over here, if you click any instruction, you can specify what percentage of time this particular instruction will appear in a program. So you can change the percentage of time a particular instruction will appear in your program to closely match the real world scenario. Look at over here. Also, this interface supply you or give you the option to use some preset. Okay, depending on the real scenario, they have given some preset, generic, or I think a very basic obsolete one, scientific, okay, one, scientific 2, and multimedia. Okay, if you choose any preset that closely represent that particular type of scenario, or depending on your special need, you can fine tune this percentage of time and this different parameter latency. Okay, so you properly choose the instruction mix or select the percentage of time a particular instruction will appear in a program through this interface. So once your instruction or program match the real world scenario closely, then you go for programming. 3 ways you can program your system. Run synthetic instruction stream. VC will operate or VC will generate the instruction stream automatically in this mode. Okay, and what type of instruction that will be generated, that you can define through the instruction mix. Or what you can do, you can write your own program by yourself. Okay, you can pick up different instruction and you can make your own program from here. Okay, so you can just write your own program. You can save the program and load the program again in for future use. Okay, and what is the third option? You can pick up a particular instruction or a single instruction and you can simulate. The most common option that we pick up is the run synthetic instruction stream after giving proper instruction mix. Okay, I will use the run synthetic instruction stream. Okay, in this case, your simulator will generate the program automatically for you. So let's do it. And if we run it, look at over here. The system is automatically generating a program, and you can see how it is getting executed inside the CPU. If you look at the right side, you can see the performance parameter. Clock cycles, MIPS, millions of instructions per second, millions of floating point instructions per second, and this is the effective IPC. This parameter IPC is the main performance parameter that you are going to measure. Effective IPC means instruction per cycle. The higher value of this effective IPC, the better performance you are getting. These are some other parameters for branch prediction and data cache. And this is the bottleneck that we see over here. Fetch bottleneck 2%, in this case dispatch 12%, issue 66%, return 20%. This simulation speed can be increased or slowed down from this interface. And some other parameter you can change directly from this interface. dispatch rate, issue rate, and return rate. And the buffer size, reorder buffer size, and the center reservation station. Now, if you want to closely understand the operation of this modern architecture, this is another way or feature of the software has called educational mode. Let me stop the simulation and go to the educational mode. In that case, okay, you run the simulation manually step by step. So we'll pick up or we'll select manual option from the top menu, manual option. You see, if you hover your mouse, it shows manually run simulation step by step. So if you do it, you get a sub menu. In the sub menu, you see there are different steps has been shown. Decode is highlighted, that means you are currently at this decode step. This dispatch, issue, execute, finish, return, and release, they are dimmed, means that they will come later. Okay, they will follow the decode. So if you click the decode, you will see what will happen. Look at over here. This is the decode and dispatch unit. Based on your program, it has the value. And at phase 0, what decode does, it has been explained over here. The Pentium Pro begins execution by fetching x86 6 instructions from the instruction cache and decoding them into RISC instruction. This process is not displayed here. I think I just suddenly click. Okay, it is automatic. Okay, that means if you want to, let me just do it again. Stop, then manual, decode. So look at over here. Thus decode and dispatch unit shows the decode and RISC instruction. Also, it is assumed that the instruction stream from the decoders is continuous. But look at over here. This entire process is automatic. If you are done early, you can click next to go to the next step. Otherwise, automatically the system will take you to the next step. Okay, dispatch. You see, through the animated arrow, it is showing what is happening from the decode and dispatch unit. You see, the type of the instruction and the destination register identifier are first sent to the reorder buffer, or a new entry is allocated for the instruction. In this case, destination register is R6, source register R6 from R4, and instruction state is dispatched. After that, phase 1, dispatch step 2. So it has the explanation through animation, okay, and through description what is happening inside. So as you take a tour inside the CPU, you will get a very good idea about this, about the operation of this complex modern CPU. Step by step, it will guide you what is happening inside the CPU one by one. So as you click next, define steps as been explained. So that you will do by yourself, okay? Through the animated arrow, it is showing everything, okay? So when this dispatch will be completed, I think it will come to the issue state. Okay, initiation state from the reservation station. So as you click the issue state again, you will see through the animated arrow what is happening. Step by step. So I suggest you go through this simulation at the beginning for a few minutes to understand the internal operation. Once you finish all the steps, then you run the simulation for your lab. So as you run the simulation, you see a different design parameter, performance parameter, bottleneck, and on the right side that we are interested for our calculation in today's lab. So how we start? Let's start the simulation and let's look at your lab sheet. Okay, if you browse or scroll down to your lab sheet, in the lab sheet you will find all the steps, explanation from the simulation, everything. Now, this is the main part of our lab today, simulation and measurement. The first measurement that we're going to perform for the data cache sheet rate. And we're going to plot a curve IPC versus data cache sheet rate. Look at over here. Instruction per cycle. This is the performance parameter that we are going to measure through our simulation. And what we're doing, we are changing the data cache sheet rate. In this case, first 71, then 73, 75, 77, 79, up to 99 we have changed. Okay. So as we change the data cache sheet rate, what will be the IPC in your computer or in your case? Okay. So that you are going to measure and put it over here on the Excel spreadsheet. This is a sample curve that has been shown. Okay. So you'll do it by yourself through the simulation. So for data cache sheet rate 71, you'll measure IPC and you'll write it over here on the Excel spreadsheet. Then for 73, again another value will measure. So how you do it? Let me show in the simulation. Go to the setting. Look at over here, data cache sheet rate. This one makes 71 at the beginning. Then you run the simulation. And look at over here, as you run the simulation, it is showing effective IPC. But as you notice over here, this effective IPC is changing over time. Sometimes it is 1.7, sometimes it's 1.8. Okay, so which value you are going to pick up? Or you may have a question, how longer you need to run the simulation to have right value? This is very important. Sometimes you need to run the simulation for longer time to get a stable value. Because when you change this IPC, the rate of change is less frequent. That means it is a stable value. So you need to run the simulation till you get a stable value of the effective IPC. For the lab, I think running simulation for longer time will not be a good choice, because in that case you cannot finish the lab. So in that case, I suggest that at least run the simulation for 1 minute, and after that take the data. Or when you find that change is less frequent, you take the data. That means in this case I am finding 1.8, I think 2 or 3, I think is a stable value. Okay, this varying like that, 1.8, and then other values varying. So I think when you see the stable value, you stop the simulation and you take the value. In this case it is 1.843, and you put the value on the Excel spreadsheet. This the value, okay, over here. Again, for the next data, you change the data cache sheet to 73. Again, go to the setting, make it 73. Then run the simulation, and when you see a stable value, take the data. Look at over here. As you increase the data cache sheet rate, you should expect higher performance. So as you see, if it IPC is still less than 1.8, as you have found before, that means probably this is not the right value. So we need to wait until we get a value higher than 1.8, that is higher than the previous value. Okay, let me increase the simulation speed, and let's see whether we can get the higher value. Because we have increased the cache size, and we should get higher performance. previously we got 1.8 something, and you should have more high value than the previous one. If you don't get a higher value of the previous one, you need to specify or note that fact that at this particular design parameter, it is not improving the CPU performance for this particular architecture. Okay, so it is an important finding if you don't see a higher value. And still we are not getting a higher value than the previous one. If you don't get a higher value, we need to note it down. Okay, at this data cache sheet at 73%, it is not improving the CPU performance. So in this case, it will look like it is around 1.7. Okay, it is not crossing 1.8. Okay, I think you can run the simulation a little bit longer to make sure that it is not crossing 1.8. That means at this parameter, your CPU will not give better performance. And in your design, in that case, if it happens like this, you need to avoid this particular value. Okay, so let me start the simulation. It looks like it is not crossing 1.8. Okay. So we'll stop the simulation and we'll put the value on our Excel spreadsheet over here, and we'll make a note on the comment section that at the data cache sheet at 73%, your CPU is not giving you better performance than the previous value. So you need to note it down. Okay. That's part of your lab that you need to note it down, so that when you design the CPU, you will avoid this particular design parameter. Okay, this particular design parameter is not giving you better performance. Similar way for other value also, you measure the IPC, then you plot the curve. So in your case, I think on 73 you have got lower performance. So I think these are the things you need to consider in your curve. Okay, in your case, I think this particular value is not good for your design. Okay, so you need to point it out. So when you plot the curve, it gives you a visual representation how data cache sheet rate is affecting your CPU performance. Okay. And as you see from this plot over here, CPU performance is increasing in most of the cases. And this is the trend that all the CPU designers are taking nowadays. They are trying their best to give you larger cache size to increase the data cache sheet rate, so that you get better CPU performance. So you are going to prove this fact through simulation. So when you vary data cache sheet rate, you keep other parameters fixed. Okay, because we are going to see the effect of only one parameter at a time in this case to study the scenario. So other parameters will be fixed when you vary one parameter. On the next plot, you will vary branch prediction accuracy. And as you vary branch prediction accuracy, look at the data, you get a different performance value, IPC, and you plot. From the plot, it proves that as you increase the accuracy, it increases the performance. But for your case, you will do it from simulation, and your simulation may have different value depending on your system. Okay, so you need to find what is the value in your system, and you need to point it out. And if you see any abnormality, that means as you increase the accuracy, it is not increasing the performance. You need to note it. Okay, you need to consider those situations when you design. Third plot is the IPC versus reorder buffer size. Again, as you increase the reorder buffer size, it increases the accuracy. Okay, so that's your lab today. You will simulate the system and plot the curve. Once you are done for this risk system, because this is a combined lab 9 and 10, and lab 10 is similar like this one. In lab 10, you use a different hardware. For lab 10, you use RISC processor. So to go to lab 10, you will choose Alpha 216, and similar way you will perform the experiment for lab 10. Okay, so lab 9 and 10 similar. That's why we have combined, because of our time limitation. Okay, we don't have extra labs in our hand, so you perform 2 labs today. First perform Intel Pentium 6 processor, then perform RISC processor. And if you cannot plot all the curves, at least plot 1 or 2 curves for each experiment, and you compare those 2 curves on the same Excel spreadsheet. That means on the same plot you bring data from 2 different architecture, one from the 6, other from the RISC, so that you can visualize the performance of these 2 different architecture, or you can compare. So let's start with the RISC processor, and first make this aggregate heater 7 to 1, and you continue accordingly to your lab sheet. Okay, first upload the first curve. Once you upload the first curve, then do the same for the lab 10, that is for the RISC architecture, and bring 2 curves on the same plot on the Excel spreadsheet so that you can visually compare. Once you do the first plot of 2 different architecture, then you go for the next plot. So as far as you can go within the time period of your lab, you continue. Accuracy again, if look at over here, if you go to the simulator, go to the settings. You see first you have given bias prediction accuracy 50%. So make it 50. So click OK and run the simulation. Again similar order. As you run the simulation, look for the stable value of the IPC, effective IPC. When the value get more stable, you note the value. Then you copy the value over here on the Excel spreadsheet. Again you change the accuracy to 55. Go to the setting. Again change it to 55. Again run the simulation, and you need to, again similar way like before, you need to look at the effective IPC. This should be higher than the previous value. Okay, so you run the simulation as long as you get a stable value, or when you find a high value, I think this is a good choice. So if you get a high value, fine, stop the simulation, not the value. But if you don't get a high value for longer time, always you get a lower value than the previous one. In that case, you need to note it down in the comment and discussion that at this particular design parameter, this particular value is not giving you the better performance. Your plot will look like ideal. This is ideal plot over here. This is ideal plot. That means as you increase the bias prediction accuracy, performance should get increased. This is the ideal plot. But if you see some deviation in your case, you need to note it on the comment section, comment and discussion. Okay, because that's the point or design parameter that you should avoid. So you proceed and plot all the curves so that you can visualize the performance.
Important to reduce overpopulation.